in for Mary today. I thanks for joining us, and as always, thanks for having me here. I really appreciate it. Donald Trump is at this moment flying home after claiming to bring peace to the Middle East, and that he will go down in history forever for these wonderful efforts. But while he claims there's peace in the Middle East, he flies home to a government that is still shut down. There's increasing unrest in this country, and a propaganda machine that continues to blame Democrats and anyone who doesn't agree with him for the shutdown. And of course, he's shut down because he doesn't want to hear those two words, Jeff Epstein. But never mind, we'll get to that later. Anyway, his increasing attacks on free speech, free elections, and the Constitution is bringing comparison to despots and dictators, even as he tries to convince everyone he's the peacemaker. Anyway, it's just another day in the Trump soup, so let's dive in. Where fake news goes to die. Hi, we're here. Today, in a surprise tweet, Barack Obama revealed himself as the final guest on WTF with Mark Maron. Yeah, I'm not going to say it. Anyway, Obama, who first appeared on the podcast 10 years ago, joined the host last episode for a conversation on current affairs. Now, naturally, they delved into Trump and his regime's increasingly authoritarian notions. At one point, the former president Wade Wharton, that you take a look at this.
When you have military that can direct force against their own people, that is inherently corrupting. When you have what looks like a delay around not just a concept, but a law that's been around for a long time, posse comitatus. You don't use our military on domestic soil unless there is an extraordinary emergency of some sort. That when you see an administration suggest that ordinary street crime or
terrorist act
or a terrorist act, yeah, that is a genuine effort how we have understood democracy.
Not only is it weakening how we understood democracy, it's actually weakening democracy. And here's the shock part of it. Donald Trump, in his first administration, and I know this because I actually asked this question in the White House with John T. Bennett from CQ Roll Call. We were both there and asked them if using the military on the border at that point in time, if they were going to get a waiver on the Posse Comitatus Act. Now, the military has been used on the border before, but usually, and what has happened before, is that the president, in acknowledging the rareness of this occurring, has gone to Congress and asked for a waiver. In the first administration, Donald Trump was unaware of what the posse could as that Hakuna Matata thing. And they used air quotes when they were talking to me and John. So I can tell you they didn't even know what it was, though it was Republicans who instituted the act because they were fighting back against what had happened during the Civil War. Nonetheless, the former president is right. It has been around for almost 150 years. And Donald Trump now knows what it is and doesn't care. And it's a red alert. It's crucial that we be vigilant about Donald's attempt to sabotage free and fair elections as well. As the New York Times reports, the election machine manufacturer Dominion Voting Systems has been sold. Woohoo! That's right. And sold to who? The buyers is Liberty Vote, a new company led by Scott Leindecker, a former St. Louis Republican election director. And in a press release, the company said its priority is leveraging hand-marked paper ballots, enabling compliance, get this, with President Trump's executive order and ensuring election security and compliance with federal standards. Again, this is a red alert. That statement echoes the Trump regime language when it comes to so-called election integrity. Donald Trump doesn't want it. The sale comes after years of Dominion being the target of baseless claims by Puff Donnie and his sycophants that they flip votes to Joe Biden in 2020. Fox settled in 2023 for a record $787 million after Dominion sued the network for defamation. That's the largest settlement of its kind in U.S. history. Dominion also sued Rudy Giuliani, who settled with them last month in a confidential agreement. I guarantee you Rudy didn't have any money. I don't know what the confidential agreement was, but it certainly couldn't. Airports are having staff shortages and flight delays resulting from the government shutdown. Of course they are. This has happened before. You know, for the first 200 years of this country, we didn't have government shutdowns. We had one under Reagan. But in the last 40 years, we've had a number of them. Most of them, well, 4 of them now, or 3 of them, have occurred during Donald Trump, and the longest ones have occurred under Donald Trump. Donald Trump created this specific problem. He could end it at any moment with negotiations. But right now, Donald isn't even talking to Republicans or Democrats. No, in his first administration, he had people in every day. He certainly hasn't had him in the last week. Hell, he's not even in the country right now. And Democrats and Republicans on the Hill, they're not talking to each other. In previous shutdowns, they did. They would go into their offices, they would hammer out, some kind of compromise, and then they would go to the president. That's not being done. Instead, Donald Trump's conference in his gold office, I used to call it the Oval Office. Now, like I swear, it still reminds me of a nail salon in Queens in the 1970s. Here's what he had to say about the slowdowns.
Are you concerned about the delays at airports, and how do you see the shutdown maybe?
Oh, sure. I mean, there are delays at the airport. That's standard.
Yeah. How is it a Democratic delay? Again, a reminder, Donald Trump and the Republicans control the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, and of course, the presidency. So you can blame facts that the Republicans are part of this problem too. Well, not to be outdone, let's talk about DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, who took things one step further. Of course she did. Noem appears on a highly partisan video that's being played at TSA checkpoints around the country. I saw it myself when I was flying this week. Take a look at this really bizarre and inappropriate
I'm Kristi
video.
Noem, the United States Secretary of Homeland Security. It is TSA's top priority to make sure that you have the most pleasant possible while we keep you safe. However, Democrats in Congress refuse to fund the federal government, and because of this, many of our operations are impacted, and most of our TSA employees are working to continue to do all that we can to avoid delays that will impact your travel. And our hope is that Democrats will soon recognize the importance of opening.
I was at an airport recently where they booed that, but I'm not going to respond to that other than to say you've got to be kidding me. Look, the government found money to pay military personnel because there are a lot of government funds that the military doesn't spend or screw up. So there's a problem with, say, they built a rocket that didn't work, or a missile that didn't work, or a tank that didn't work. That money's still sitting around, so they use it to pay off the military. There are funds around that you could use. Those two groups of people have the most difficult job. And you've got Donald Trump threatening to lay off people while at the same time not paying those. What a way to build a esprit de corps, right? So anyway, today, Donald is in the Middle East spreading the word about the ceasefire deal between Israel and Gaza. Here's NBC News with more on that story.
In an historic ceremony to formalize the peace deal that he brokered between Israel and Hamas, 20 world leaders, including Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, are also there. It comes after the last 20 surviving Israeli hostages were freed from Hamas following activity overnight. We also saw hundreds of Palestinian prisoners released by Israel today as part of this peace deal. Also today, Israel is expecting to receive the remains of 4 Israeli hostages. Israel's defense minister says they're committed to ensuring the return of all 28 hostages who died, saying if Hamas does not, it is a failure to meet the commitments of the peace deal. The ceremony in Egypt capping off has also met with some hostage families and gave a speech before the Israeli parliament known as the Knesset earlier today.
This took 3,000 years to get to this point. Can you believe it? It's going to.
Yeah, it took 3,000 years to get to this point, and it's going to hold up. Well, I hope it holds up because there does need to be peace in the Middle East, and mazel tov for those who brought about peace in the Middle East. I have cousins on both sides of that conflict, and but it's fragile, and it has to be looked at and looked after by a country that can take care of itself. And right now, I don't know if that's us. I pray that it is. Earlier today, Donald spoke about the deal in an address to the Israeli parliament. Naturally, he took the opportunity to weigh in on an unrelated topic. You know, his buddy, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who's facing corruption charges, kind of like Donnie.
Good
Anyway,
men right here.
take a look.
These 2 men are good men right here. Hey, I have an president. Why don't you give him a pardon? Give him a pardon. Come on. By the way, that was not in this.
Convicted criminal says what? Of course, Donald Trump's just projecting. He wants a pardon. Look, he'll probably never see the inside of a prison cell, but that doesn't mean that Stephen Miller and a lot of other people in that administration aren't headed that way. Anyway, Donald then traveled to Egypt, where at one point he spoke alongside President Abdel, I'm going to get it, Fattah el-Sisi. Naturally, he jumped at another chance to make it all what about himself? Of course, instead of focusing on peace, he talked about his aspirations to be an authoritarian, militarily backed leader.
We're in a country where a friend of mine is a very powerful leader, and my friend is right here, the president, also the general, you know. Sometimes I call him, usually I call him the general because he's both, and he's good at both. And they've done a fantastic job. And they have very little crime, you know. They don't play games like we do in the United States with governors that have no idea what they're doing. But they don't have crime. I ask about crime, and they almost don't even know what I'm talking about. It's a great tribute to this man. He's done a fantastic job in bringing this country together. It's about leadership. And it's really nice when you say, how is your crime situation? And they don't even know what you're talking about. What do you mean crime? We don't have crime. Very quickly. Some people think that's not nice, but I think it's great. Because people don't want to be mugged and smashed, and they don't want to be stupid people. They have a place that doing very well. We're very proud of them because we knew each other from the beginning. The first time I met, it was in a hotel, and I was going to meet him and then Hillary Clinton. And he liked me so much, he never even got to see Hillary for about 2 seconds. But he didn't really want to waste a lot of time.
Okay, first of all, it's not the governors who don't understand leadership, it's Donnie. And of course, people don't want to be mugged and smashed. Donald, hey, Puff Donnie, they don't want to be mugged or smashed by the government either. Have you seen the video of the ICE agents who are dragging people out of their home and beating them Donald, I got news for you. Booby, they don't want to be beaten by you either. You simply don't understand how feckless you really, really are. Anyway, Don's not going to lie, and they're projected to be the biggest ones yet. The American Prospect reports that the No Kings protests scheduled for this Saturday, October 18th, are expected to be even larger than the demonstrations last June. And those gatherings drew millions across the U.S. and abroad. Organized by civil rights and progressive groups, these rallies aim to challenge Donald's authoritarian tactics and his dismantling of public programs like Medicare and Medicaid. Planners expect more than 2,500 of them. There are anchor rallies set for major cities, including Washington, D.C., San Francisco, Chicago, Atlanta, and even Bozeman, Montana. You got to love Bozeman. And since people around the world want an America with no kings, the Trump regime is naturally spitting as the Hate America rally, which makes absolutely no sense. Take a look at what Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent had to say on Fox about the No Kings protests.
If in fact they are waiting for this No Kings protest, no kings means no paychecks. No paychecks, and I think the dirty secret here for why this has dragged on for so long is the Democratic friends in the mainstream media have been downplaying this shutdown. And this is getting serious. It's starting to affect the real economy. It's starting to affect people.
That's straight out of the Republican talking points. The real reason why this is carrying on is because the Republicans want to break the back of any resistance to what it is that they're doing. And why do they want to do that? Well, there's two reasons for it. One, Donald Trump wants to make sure that the House doesn't go into session because all they need is one more vote, which they'll get, to release the Epstein documents. And even members of MAGA are going after the Epstein documents. This is a governmental play by Donald Trump and his minions to make sure that the Epstein Beetlejuice, but that's another story. And the other reason why they don't want what's going on to stop is because if they cannot break the backs of the Democrats and set it up so that in 2026 they remain in power, there are plenty of people, including Pam Bondi, Tom Homan, the list goes on, Kash Patel, and especially Stephen Miller, who will face retribution, or more likely justice, for what they've done to the American electorate and to the Constitution. They're criminal arm of the law, not Donald Trump. And that's what they have to avoid at all costs. But I remind them, while Richard Nixon never spent a day in prison, his, Attorney General did. Think about that. With that, we've reached today's emotional support moment. Today, we're going with a wonderful feel-good sports story to lift our spirits, and it always brings goose flesh to me. In Atlee, Virginia, two competing high school football teams came together to rally around a fellow player. Seth Shuri, a senior born with cerebral palsy, was given the football and then encouraged to run. Shuri blew up expectations and inspired everyone in the stadium and beyond. And watch as both teams helped him. Enjoy this tremendous story and have a great night.
Number 15, Seth Shuri Sr. on carry.
I coached football for many years, and I got to tell you, it always, I get close to tears watching that for one simple reason. It brings home something that we all need to remember. We're all in this together, folks, all in it together. And watching the opposition team, and everyone cheered by people who weren't even on his team. Man, if you can do that, sports teaches. I know people get upset with sports, and especially football, and I know that there are problems, but that's a team sport. It teaches you one thing, and one thing that's really important to learn in today's world. There's nothing we can't do when we work together. And you've got to be a part of something bigger than yourself. And man, that one drives it home, and I'm sorry, it always makes me tear up. But anyway, with that, I know we've got your questions, and I'd love to answer them. So whatever you got, hit me. I'm here. What you got, Lexi? Let's see if I can make that go away so I can read it. And then Kristen, I'm having trouble today reading this stuff. Who wants to say, all right, one more time. I can't even read that on here, but let's try it one more time. And how do I get, I'm going to hit escape, and maybe we'll be able to get out of it. Can't even drag it out so it gets bigger. This is all right. I'm just going to go to the comments on the side that I can read. Start. All right, we're going to start with those where I can read them. New member Sasha Kellogg, thank you very much. Margie Beck, $5 super sticker. Thank you, Margie. Thank you, Kendra. In the middle of nowhere, gifted one Mary Trump Media membership. Cindy Bolt, thank you. All those aside, Night Owl Ohio, swear jar free, because I'm sure MTM peeps are cussing a lot right now. Well, I've been trying not to, but God bless you for saying that. Midas Cheryl, $2. Thank you to our incredible mods. Thank you, our incredible mods. Betty Veronica, why do Megan know that's not AI Trump? Here's a question, Betty, I have. How do we know anything's real anymore? Because with AI and with a lot of ability to manipulate media, you have to double check everything, and that's the God's honest truth. Motley Pizzer, Donald will be insider trading on Israeli tech stocks. Well, the truth is, he does want to build on. He talked about building there before, and that's not me. That's Donald saying that. Leaping Keys, don't be fooled. He's over there to see if he can start building his fancy resort, or not. You're right. He is, or not. He is. RK, shut it down. Stop shopping for luxury items. Buy only what you need. Nothing of what you don't. No holidays until the people are free. I'm sure that's what RK meant. But here's the thing, RK. No one's winning this shutdown. We're all losing, and the government needs to work, and that's Republicans and Democrats. And here's the thing: it's hard to support a government that doesn't support the people. And the bottom line is, what the Democrats are doing are trying to get the government to work for the people. And what the Republicans are trying to do is break the back of the Democrats so there is no opposition. That, my friends, is the most frightening part of this shutdown. It's unlike anything I've ever seen before. And the bottom line is, we have two parties in this country. I say it often: one has no heart, one has no head. I don't know if the Democrats have the head to win this, and I'm tired of hearing about winning and losing since we're all losing. But I know in my heart, the Republicans have no heart. So I'll go with that. Linda Hibbs, new member. Thank you, Linda. Christine Pruitt. Democrats realize that regular people need health care. They understand that the Republican Party is run by one guy who is a despot and who wants to make sure that there is no opposition to him. He's kicked out all of the opposition from the Republican Party. There were Republicans that showed up at the Democratic National Convention before the last election, hoping to sway the votes and couldn't. The truth of the matter is, we need a lot more than that. We need a representative government. This Saturday should prove very interesting, according to Christine Pruitt, because since Trump has declared Antifa a terrorist organization, it's a strategy. Donald Trump and the Republican Party need an enemy, so they're going to create one. Antifa. And what the hell is Antifa? I have anti-fascism. So if that means you're a fascist, if you're anti-Antifa, a dedicated organization with their own little hats and meetings. Antifa is a nebulous ideology that is just anti-fascism. And are there people that are violent on the far left? Of course there are. But to rule that Antifa is a terrorist organization assumes that they're actually an organization, and they aren't. Going to show up Saturday. That's not the way I fight this battle. I'm a reporter. I show up in the briefing room, or I show up in front of the president, or I write articles. That's the way I stand for remembering that and putting a picture of me fighting Donald Trump in an article that had to do with Pete Hegseth. But for those who show up and fight and show up, and I don't mean fight, I mean protest, because they'll use the word fight, and it's not a physical fight. Standing up to a bully and to show up on Saturday. I hope it's 4 or 5. Susan Thompson, thank you for gifting 5 Mary Trump Media memberships. Colleen Sawyer from Canada, thanks for stepping up to host, Brian. Love Mary's show. I do too. And as always, thanks for having me here, folks. It's always a lot of fun being here. You guys are great. Mary, a few. So my statement is simple. If Trump has achieved peace, will it last 48 hours? He thinks he's reached a business deal. We already know how these work out. Well, as Donald Trump said, he said, they've been fighting for 3,000 years till this moment when I put an end to it. I don't think that he's put an end to the fighting in the Middle East. I pray and hope so, but I am skeptical because I've seen this go down many times before. Maybe there will be peace for a time. I certainly hope so. I really don't know. So let's see, anything else? So my statement is that it? Any others? Well, if that's it, I want to thank everybody for joining us, and I want to thank you for being here. If there's any other stray comments that I need to answer, it's just been a pleasure being here with you guys, and I want to thank you for having me as always. Mary will be back at the end of the week, and I'll be here not tomorrow. I am officiating. I will tell you the God's honest truth. Tomorrow, I am putting on my clerical robe, and I am officiating a wedding for a friend of mine in the Washington, D.C. area. But I will be back on Wednesday. And yes, I am actually an ordained minister. It's kind of scary, isn't it? So thanks a lot for joining us. You can catch me here and, of course, on Substack, Reporter's Notebook, and once a week when I'm on my not CQ Roll Call, sorry, Salon.com with my column once a week in Salon. I want to thank you guys for joining us, and I'll catch you next time.